This is a Shields of Shame exclusive.
Lois Howard was arrested by Canton Police in Cherokee County, Georgia at 1 a.m. sitting on a bench in a Publix shopping center in front of a Hallmark store. Howard was arrested on a criminal trespass from the Publix, even though she was not on Publix property. It was stated by Officer Leonard that it was believed she was stealing while the stores were closed at 1 a.m. Friday night. Howard is an elderly female. She stated to EMS she was shoved into the back of the police car and suffered several broken ribs.
Those two individuals were at Hallmark, not at Publix, but they were at the Hallmark sitting on a bench, and I believe the Hallmark person that was working there called it in saying that they had stolen things from the area before, and they were sitting on the bench outside and they just didn't want them around. They were not CT'd from Hallmark, but they were CT'd from Publix. I hope I didn't break her ribs. I was very careful with her.
So we got sent to the Publix for Jerry and Lois. I guess Publix employees were concerned that they shoplift, so they called us out there for them. They were both going to get citations for the city ordinance of loitering, because now they're raising suspicion that the store's property is going to get stolen.
Howard was then taken to the Cherokee County Detention Center and dropped off in the parking lot of the jail. The jail staff refused to accept her due to her injuries, and there was a lot of chaos and lies past that point. Join me as we go down this long, winding, and twisting road to discover the truth about what happened to Lois Howard and the officers involved.
Today's date is May 25th, 2021. The time now is 17:59 hours. In the room is Ashley Penley and myself, Sergeant Tiffany Cromer. This is in reference to a internal affairs investigation interviewing a witness. Okay. So I'm sure you're familiar with the situation that occurred on May the 21st involving Officer Leonard, her FTO, and a situation where a subject, or a female subject, Lois Howard, was brought in and subsequently refused admittance into the jail.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my understanding is that you were present for certain parts of this encounter. From start to finish, can you kind of just tell me what happened from when you first encountered the situation till you left?
Yes.
Okay.
So I heard that Cam was bringing a female, so myself and Deputy Vasquez went out to the intake area. And before we opened the door, the FTO, I'm not sure of his name, he said when we put her in the car, she kind of pushed herself into the floorboard, and she's acting all hurt. And I was like, okay. So we pulled her out of the car and took her into the intake area, and she complained to Deputy Vasquez that she had broken a rib when the officers were putting her into the car. So we called for a nurse immediately, and the nurse came out, and he refused admittance because obviously, he can't really just tell her that her rib's not broken. And when Officer Leonard walked into the intake area and she heard that the female was being refused, I don't want to say she started yelling, but she raised her voice and she was like, she just went to the hospital this morning and she was checked out and she's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. She's lying. I'll put $100 on the fact that she's fine. And then the nurse was like, okay, there's nothing I can do about that. So he signed the refusal paperwork, and then he walked out. He left the intake area. And Leonard looked at her FTO, and she was like, well, I guess just, unhandcuff her. And then, so he took the handcuffs off the female. I don't know why they did that, but
Okay.
They took the handcuffs off the female, and I stood by and kind of, held her arm, because she hadn't been patted down, and she was in our facility, and they took the handcuffs off, which was confusing to me. So I just held her arm. And then she continued to kind of raise her voice at our sergeant, Emriano, about how this is ridiculous and our medical staff is incompetent, blah, 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 stuff like that. And then she said that she was going to just drop her off at the front door and leave her there. She didn't want to take her to the hospital. She didn't think anything was wrong with her. So at that point, they all walked out, and I'm not sure what happened after that. I went back into the book-in area.
Okay. Did Officer Leonard cuss while she was yelling?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Did you ever witness Officer Leonard on her phone? Did you ever see her answer a phone call?
Yes. I do believe she called a supervisor or something like that.
So, do you think she called someone, or she maybe answered a phone call? What do you think?
I'm not sure. I just remember her talking on the phone saying, like, they're going to refuse this female, and, like, you know, it's ridiculous, all this stuff, so.
Did you ever hear her say a name?
I didn't, no.
Okay. All right. What gave you the impression that she was speaking to a supervisor?
I can't remember if she said, like, a rank, or if she maybe answered with, like, ma'am or sir. She said something that clicked in my head that it was a supervisor. I can't recall exactly what she had said.
Okay. Okay. All right. And so then you left and walked into the booking area?
Yes, after the female was walked out to their car, I left and I went back into the booking area.
Okay, all right. How did you think the elderly female, Miss Lois Howard, looked? What was your take on her?
Physically, I mean, she looked not very well kept. I mean, her clothes were pretty clean for being homeless, as Officer Leonard said she was, but her hair was, like, greasy. She looked like probably she hadn't bathed in a while, and she looked frightened, like her face. She looked scared. She kept saying she was scared over and over again.
Okay. All right. Did you notice any bruises on her?
I didn't. Personally, she kept saying her wrists were bruised from the handcuffs, and she, like, showed me, and I could see indentions from the handcuffs, but, I mean, that's kind of normal,
yes,
so...
ma'am. Okay. Well, is there anything that you think may be vital for me to know that I haven't asked you about, or we haven't already covered?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Also, really quick, how did the FTO seem? Did you ever hear him say anything other than she fell into the floor?
No, he just approached us. He said she fell into the floor, and then he didn't say anything that I can recall. He just, whenever Leonard told him to take the handcuffs off, he just walked over, took the handcuffs off, and he didn't say anything. He just kind of was, you know, doing what he was told to do.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all the questions that I have for you. Again, thank you for meeting with me, and I apologize again for you even having to be here with me. So, end of interview. The time now is 18:06. Today's date is May 25th, 2021. The current time is 18:24. In the room is Sergeant Tiffany Cromer and Deputy Bryce Searcy with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. This is in reference to an interview, a witness interview for an internal affairs investigation. Okay, so what I'd like to try to do first is just explain to you the situation, so you are fully aware of why I'm sitting here. On May the 21st, around 1:17 in the morning, Officer Leonard and Officer Overbay arrested a female. Her name is Lois Howard, the elderly female. Mm-hmm. She was transported here and then subsequently was refused by medical staff. And it is my understanding at that point, Officer Leonard became unprofessional and again, subsequently left the elderly female, Lois Howard, at the front of the jail. So if you could please just take me from the moment you made contact to the end of the contact that you had with them, and just tell me what happened.
Okay. I was in the booking area, and usually when Leonard comes in, she's a buddy. We don't hang out outside of work or nothing, but I'm always happy to go talk to her when she comes in.
Right.
But I heard the female was getting refused. And I heard Leonard being a little upset. So, of course, naturally curious, as cops we are. I walk out there and lady's getting refused. I don't know completely why yet, and I don't even know why she's there.
Okay.
I did hear some Leonard talking about, well, she's homeless. Of course, she's going to have some bruises and some sores. She's homeless. Sergeant's getting the paperwork ready for the refusal, and he was signing it, and she was saying, I'm tired of coming up here and them being refused for a bullshit reason, and things like that. And then she made this comment about, every time that somebody gets refused for a bullshit reason, I'm going to drop them off in front of your jail. That way when they call 911, it's your problem. Sergeant Briano, it's like, I'm advising you not to do that, please. Again, she goes, no, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Every time y'all refuse a bullshit reason, I'm going to drop them off in front of the jail. Again, he advised her, I strongly advise you not to do this. And he was actually up against a door signing the refusal paperwork. And she was actually leaning up against a wall, still trying to maintain eye contact.
This is a Shields of Shame exclusive.
I'm military, so at that point I kind of had to vacate because, you don't talk to my superior that way, but he's a sergeant, he can handle himself. But
I understand.
me, my Marine Corps self, I'm like, who the f*** you talking to my sergeant like that? So I was like, you know what? I'm walking out. So I walked out. Now I'm hanging out in the booking area. TV in the corporal's office has cameras. One of them's at the lobby. And I sat down and I looked and I saw the elderly lady walking around up front, and I'm watching. And she was just kind of walking in circles, like, well, maybe she's waiting on a ride or something. So I just kind of watched for a couple minutes. And then I saw her walking across the roadway, kind of towards our parking lot, and then our camera shuts off. So I was like, I'm going to go do a 92 to see if she's going to our parking lot, what she's doing. Because she is homeless, supposedly. So I go up to do a 92. I exit out the lobby. And when I exit out the lobby, she was actually past our parking lot, that new animal shelter parking lot. She was towards the end of that.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, well, she's walking down towards the road. Wherever she's going is fine. I take my trainee. We continue a 92 around the building. We come back, and I round the corner down there by the visitation center, and I saw the fire truck. I'm like, okay. So as we just continue walking up in front of the actual sheriff's office building here, then an ambulance shows up. I make the turn at the corner down there by the emergency services to come down into the south gate. Took a couple steps, and something tell me, let's go talk to fire. So I turned, I went up and talked to fire. I was like, hey, is everything okay? And because I assumed it was her, the elderly lady. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, did she call 911? You're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're trying to find out her story. And I was like, well, I can tell you what I do know. I said, Officer Leonard and her trainee brought him in. She was refused because at this time I had heard that she got refused for the sores and saying she had broken ribs and stuff. I said, so she got refused. Officer Leonard got upset and said she was going to drop her off at our front door. She did. I said, I came up here. She was actually walking up the road. So I was like, okay, good to go. And then they asked me why she was arrested. I didn't know, so I had to call Sarge on the phone. And he told me she was arrested, brought in for criminal trespass, but subsequently refused. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah. So they're like, wow, okay. And she was in there crying, like, take me to the hospital, please. I just want to go to the hospital. I'm like, we're going to take you to the hospital, but we're trying to get some background, find out what's going on here. And but don't worry, we're taking you to the hospital, trying to calm her down, and because she's seemed a little 24. But so they're trying to calm her down, but at the same time they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. So, and that ended our conversation. Like, all right, y'all need anything else? You're like, no, that'll be it, thanks. And
did anyone from our department or y'all's department other than you show up to that scene?
No.
Okay. Right.
No, I called Sarge. I said, hey, they're going to transport her. She called 911. I gave them all the information that I knew, or that we knew that that I was told was about the sores. She's complaining of rib pain. She had broken ribs. They could tell that she seemed a little 24, and that she was refused for criminal trespass and dropped off in our front door. And he goes, okay, great. So when I came back down and I finished my 92, Sarge called me in his office, asked me to go over it with him again, and I guess he did a memo because he wasn't sure if the fire department, who was going to see,
Right.
and I don't know. And now you're here.
Okay, I understand. At any point, did you ever see Officer Leonard on her cell phone?
This is a Shields of Shame exclusive.
No, I don't think I did.
No? Okay, all right. Did you ever speak or have any type of conversation with Overbay, ever see him speak, which is the trainee?
No. He was over on the computer side and getting her re-handcuffed, whatever, to exit the building, getting her stuff. The only one her talk was Leonard and being pissed off that we were refusing her for the BS reasons that she said.
Did she use the curse word fuck at any point that you heard?
I do not recall.
Okay, all right. But you do, okay, all right. Okay, did you ever walk outside of the jail with her?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay.
No, because that's when she's kind of leaning, kind of getting in my sergeant's face, that's when I walked off to keep.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, the whole Marine Corps part wanted to come out and like, who the hell are you talking to a superior like that?
So when he was right on the door and she was kind of in his face, you walked away and never had contact with her again?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Perfect. All right. Well, before I end the conversation, I always like to ask, is there anything that you think is vital for me to know that I maybe not have asked you or we may have not covered?
No, ma'am. Like I said, I don't know anything that happened before. I usually go outside to talk to Leonard.
Okay.
And it kind of hurt her. I knew it was her voice. And then once I got out there, I realized she was a little aggravated. And then it led to me ended up leaving. But, no, I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, really. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't a lot to it. But
Okay. All right. Did you ever hear her say anything about calling a supervisor or anything like that? No? Okay.
no. One thing I heard her say was that multiple times she was going to drop her off in the front of our building, so it's our problem when she calls 911.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I've got for you. The time now is 6:32. End of recording. Today's date is May 25th, 2021. The time now is 17:45 hours. In the room is Sergeant Tiffany Cromer and Stella Vasquez. This is in reference to an internal affairs investigation and a witness interview. Okay. So I just want to start by stating thank you for meeting with me.
You're welcome.
I hate the circumstances that we're meeting, but I imagine you understand it. So a part of my job is to investigate unprofessional conduct, unsatisfactory performance, and I believe that's kind of obviously why I'm here. Officer Leonard, are you familiar with who she is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It's my understanding that she came to the jail on May the 21st around 1:17 in the morning with Lois Howard, who
The elderly lady. Yes. I didn't remember her name, but I remember her being elderly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, her name is Lois Howard, and it's my understanding that she was refused by medical staff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What is that nurse's name? Do you know?
It's the male nurse, and his first name is Russell, and I don't remember his last name.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, if you could just take me from start to finish,
Okay.
what happened?
So we got a call. There was a female coming in. Canton was bringing a female in. So I was a female down in booking. So I went out to the car. Another female, Penley, came behind me. I wanted to get this female out of the car, and she was, of course, carrying on. Her ribs hurt, her hands hurt, everything hurt. She was very elderly, and she appeared to be very frail to me. So I got her out of the car, escorted her inside, called for a nurse because her ankles, when I looked down at her ankles, they were just, it was huge.
Okay.
So I just, before we accepted her, wanted to make sure that she was, medically, we could keep her.
All right. I understand
So
that.
call for the nurse. Nurse Russell came down, and he spoke with her for a minute. He looked at her. He said, just her physical appearance, he said, she needs to get checked out. She's got, bruises. She's got swollen legs, and she just didn't look good.
Okay.
So
from that point on, Officer Leonard, she had a trainee with her, Officer Leonard basically started losing her mind. And excuse me, I'm not a cursing
That's
person
fine.
at all, but
Right.
I'm going to be verbatim for what she said.
Please do.
She said that, she said to Sergeant Embriano, what's wrong with these nurses? They don't know their job. She was just going on and on about how she's tired of bringing people in, they get turned away, and they're just fucking stupid. They need to do a better job. She was going on and on about that.
Okay.
Just yelling. And she proceeded to yell and curse, and she was even getting on to the lady that was sitting there. She was here for criminal trespass, I believe. Mm-hmm. And she made the reference, and she said, well, she's just homeless, and she's always in places where she shouldn't be. She's just homeless, as if, I don't know, it was very demeaning,
Okay.
I understand it's an inmate, but it was very demeaning. So the nurse refused her. She just was cursing and yelling and, being very disrespectful to my sergeant. So she said, well, all I'm going to do is, I'm not taking her to the hospital. All I'm going to do is drive her around front, and I'm going to drop her off. That's where she's going to be. And when I'm saying this, her voice was very elevated, yelling at him. And he said, no, I don't think you should do that. Don't do that. So she said, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive her around, and I'm going to drop her off. We're not taking her anywhere because she needs to be here. The nurse shouldn't have done that. She was very belligerent, just yelling and repeating the same thing over and over. Well, it turns out when she finally left, she in fact did, after being told not to do what she did, she in fact dropped the lady off up front. And eventually an ambulance showed up. That's all I know. Once she dropped her, I don't know from beyond that point. But when the lady, Deputy Penley and myself were getting her in, and she was struggling to walk. I don't know if she was putting on or not, but I know she was struggling to walk. So then when she was refused, Leonard was yelling at her, telling her, get up out of the chair. You can walk. You just putting on. I don't know why you're doing this. You're just putting on. You shouldn't be doing this. You know how to walk, and you know how to do things, so just get up and walk out to the car. So, yeah. It was,
Okay.
yeah.
Can you tell me about it's actually Officer Overbay. He's in FTO with her.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me anything about him, about the situation?
He never said a word.
Never said a word.
No,
Okay.
I don't recall him ever saying a word, but I don't know how he would have gotten a chance. He did come over, and he took the handcuffs off, because she still had handcuffs on at that point, and she told him to come and take the handcuffs off. And he came over and he did what he was, he was told to do. But I don't recall him saying anything unprofessionally. I think, in my opinion, just from his appearance, maybe he was kind of taken back by what she was doing, the way her behavior as well. But he didn't say a word that I can recall.
Okay. Did you ever see her get on a cell phone, answer a call?
She was on the cell phone.
Okay. Do you recall any of that conversation?
She was yelling so much, I think she was still yelling while she was on the phone, but she was on a cell phone.
Okay. After the phone call, did she say anything? Were you there when she got off the phone?
No, she just kept yelling about the nurse and being refused, and she was gonna drop the lady off up front, and she was just really mad that the lady wasn't there because there was nothing wrong with her. Mm-hmm. And she just repeated she was just homeless, and things like that.
Okay.
I don't recall what was actually said on the phone or what was said after she got off. I just remember all the yelling that was going on.
Do you know if she answered more than one call?
Or
if it was
not
just
that
one?
I'm aware, because there was a point when they took her, Deputy Penley and I came back in to the booking area, mm-hmm. and she and the sergeant went out to intake, or outside.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Do you know, so I have that video footage. Do you know if there's sound to it? Because what I got, it doesn't have.
It doesn't. We don't have sound.
Okay. Okay.
We don't have sound on the. And the reason I know that is I used to oversee all that stuff, and There's no sound. It's
Okay.
just the video.
Okay. All right. Okay. Is there anything else you think that might be vitally important for me to know that we haven't touched on already?
I mean, just the biggest thing, and I think you got the gist of it, is just the way she was yelling at my sergeant.
Right.
And cursing at him and telling him what she was going to do and how incompetent our nursing staff was. And, you know,
Right.
it was interesting, to say the least.
Okay. All right. Well, that is all the questions that I have for you, ma'am. Thank you again
You're welcome.
for meeting with me. And again,
You're welcome.
on behalf of my department, I sincerely apologize for what you were subjected to that night.
Well,
So,
thank you so much.
all right, I'm going to end the recording. In the recording, it's now 17:53.